How's it going, everyone? Today I'm bringing you an equipment tier list for Risk of Rain 2. I'm going to be splitting up all the other videos, so this one will be the equipment tier list, then there's going to be a void tier list, etc, etc. You can go check that out. They're going to be linked around, and they're also going to be in a playlist too. You're going to be able to get your fill. Also, because this is a tier list and people have some flaming opinions on some of the items that are good or bad, I have to say this is my own opinion, and this is not financial advice. But if you don't agree with my opinion, you're wrong. Anyways, let's start ranking these bad boys. Starting with the Blast Shower. Now, the Blast Shower has a 20-second cooldown, and it cleanses all negative effects, includes debuffs, damage over time, and nearby projectiles. Now, for Survivors of the Void, this item is going to be an A tier item. Now, you might be wondering why this item is an A tier when all it does is cleanse the debuffs, really. Well, thankfully, that's not all it does. You see, there are two debuffs that are actually beneficial to you that it can reset. Kajaros, Gnarled's, and the Singularity Bands all count as being a debuff. Also, Space Bears are also a debuff that you can reset with a Blast Shower. So the 10-second cooldowns on the bands, or the 20-second on the Singularity Band, I suppose, can be reset and immediately reapplied. Also, the Blast Shower with Singularity Band, because the Singularity Band actually can proc itself, if you refresh the Blast Shower, it can proc itself infinitely. So the Blast Shower is a pretty good item, A tier. Next up, we have my favorite item in the game, the DML, the Disposable Missile Launcher. Fire a swarm of 12 missiles that deal 12 times 300% damage. Each missile has a proc coefficient of 1.0, and the cooldown on the item is 45 seconds. Now I'm going to put the DML in the S tier. No other item in the game could really make your keyboard hands off better than the Disposable Missile Launcher in A Gesture of the Drowned. You have that item combo, and you don't even have to play the game anymore. Eccentric Vase, F tier, I hate it, and I always end up using it on accident when I'm having too many Bottle of Chaoses in my inventory, so big F on this one. All it does is create a quantum tunnel of up to 1,000 meters in length and lasts 30 seconds. You can be hit in this tunnel, so it also has a 45-second cooldown, meaning it has the same cooldown as a Disposable Missile Launcher, and that's its buff version. It used to be a lot worse. Alright, moving on. Let's not talk about the Vase all day. The Executive Card, also known as Mom's Credit Card. Whenever you make a gold purchase, get 10% of the gold spent back. If the purchase is a multi-shop terminal, the other terminals will remain open. Obviously, this is an S tier item. Mom's Credit Card is a must-get regardless of whatever you have in your inventory currently. The 10% works on Shrines of Chances, so you don't get completely scammed, and makes multi-shop terminals that much more efficient. Also, if you have a shipping request form, which gives you a free multi-shop terminal, but it's only 2, you can get both of them from that terminal, which is pretty broken. If you stack enough shipping request forms, you can get almost guaranteed red items, and then you could have 2 of them each stage for free. Mom's Credit Card OP. Next is the Foreign Fruit, instantly heal for 50% of your maximum health with a 45-second cooldown, the same as Disposable Missile Launcher. This is an A tier item because it gives you 50% of your maximum health as an instant heal, and really helps if you get it before you get any other healing items, especially during Eclipse. Forgive Me Please, also known as the FMP, is just a doll that you throw on the ground that will proc your on-kill effects every second for 8 seconds, so essentially 8 times per doll. It has a 45-second cooldown, and I consider this item to be S tier. This is definitely a god run equipment, probably better than the Disposable Missile Launcher depending on what you have, and pairs really well with a lot of good items. Ceremonial Daggers, Soulbound Catalyst, Will-o-the-Wisp, Gasoline, all of these items are great. Now, Forgive Me Please doesn't work as good as it used to, because of course Soulbound Catalyst could make it so you could throw out a Forgive Me Please and have infinite amounts of Forgive Me Pleases. So now there's a hard cap where you can only have 3 out at once. That's still a lot of damage, so no complaints here. The Fuel Array, at least above the Eccentric Base. Gnarled Wood Sprite. Gain a Wood Sprite follower that heals 1.5% of your maximum health per second, can be sent to an ally to heal them for 10% of their maximum health. You can use this on yourself, you don't have to use it on an ally. So it's a pretty good regenerating item. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Foreign Fruit, but it does have a lower cooldown on that 10% heal. And you're constantly regenerating 1.5% of your maximum HP per second, so I'd say it's A tier, right below the Foreign Fruit. Just right below it. They might even be equivalent. I don't know, it's hard to tell. They're both really good. Gubu Jr. Spawn a gummy clone that has 170% damage and 170% health, expires in 30 seconds with a 100-second cooldown. Now, this item is bad. This is like C tier, D tier, maybe even F tier. As much as people were simping over Gubu when he was first announced, the AI in Risk of Rain 2 is just not good enough to be able to take an equipment slot. I'm sorry. It's usually just derping around doing its own thing, so honestly, I'll put it C tier. It's probably good if you need something else to exist beside you. Like maybe if you were super lonely, it would be pretty good, so C tier for situational. Gorag's Opus. All allies enter a frenzy for 7 seconds, increases movement speed by 50% and attack speed by 100% with a 45-second cooldown. I almost never pick this up unless I have no other equipment. It is literally just the effect from Berserker's Pauldrons, which also increases your movement speed and attack speed by that exact amount, but it does it at a 45-second cooldown. I'm also going to be putting this in the C tier because it would be nice, but it's usually not better than anything else. The Jade Elephant. Gain 500 armor for 5 seconds with a 45-second cooldown. Notice the trend here? I would put the Jade Elephant in the solid B tier. For those of you who don't know, 500 armor equates to roughly 83% damage reduction, I believe. So you take basically no damage from anything. But you know what else does that? Killing everything. And also dodging everything. Most of the times you die, you're probably going to die to something you did not see coming. So a Jade Elephant is kind of useless in those scenarios because you won't see it coming. I almost never pick up this item unless I'm going to stack 20 different gestures to get it down to like a 0 cooldown. I'm sure this item is good in certain situations, but that's just what it is. Situational B tier. The Milky Chrysalis. Sprout wings and fly for 15 seconds, gain plus 20% movement speed for the duration and 60-second cooldown. They also buffed it not that long ago, actually pretty long ago. I'm old now. But if you press the space bar or whatever it is on console, you burst forward. It's like a little mini dash. It's pretty nice. In terms of mobility equipment, this is probably the best one, so I'll go ahead and put it in B tier, but it's very rare where you'll ever need this, or take it over something else. Alright, now the Molotov 6-pack, a new item from Survivors of the Void. It basically spawns a bunch of fireballs around an area. Does 500% base damage, and the Ignite does 200% per second. Another item with a 45-second cooldown. I'm sticking this item in B tier. This one is, I never pick it up. It's not that good, I don't think. Maybe if you got enough of those ignition tanks. But other than that, I don't see a use case for it. Ocular Hud. Gain 100% critical strike chance for 8 seconds on a 60-second cooldown. I'd give this an A tier, especially because of Survivors of the Void, there being Lost Seer's lenses, which takes away all of your crit chance from your Lensmaker's glasses. Not all of your crit chance in general. So this is a way to gain back all that lost crit damage. Also, if you have a Shatter Spleen, this helps you apply the bleed much quicker. Keep in mind, if you already have max critical strike chance on anybody but the Railgunner, this item is useless and you should never pick it up. Next is the Preon Accumulator. Fires a big old missile that does 600% damage per second and detonates in an AoE for 4000% damage. This has a 140-second cooldown, the highest out of all equipment. The Preon Accumulator gets an easy high A tier. It does exactly what it needs to do, which is kill enemies quickly. It somewhat falls off later on in the game because it's down for so long and it won't insta-kill a lot of the later enemies, but you could easily be carried all the way to Mithrix with a Preon Accumulator. Yep, Akum. The Primordial Cube fires a black hole that draws enemies within 30 meters into its center and lasts 10 seconds. This has a cooldown of 60 seconds. Wow, really breaking the mold here. I'm going to give it a B tier because really all it does is group up enemies and not even like that many enemies, just enemies in a small AoE. Just because you can group them up doesn't necessarily mean that you can kill them, so you're not always going to pick this up. The Radar Scanner. Need I say more? F. The Recycler. The only item that I would probably ever swap the mommy's credit card for. I'm still not sure where to put each of these in regards to each other. I don't know which one's better. I would say that if you were going on a shorter run and you didn't care about picking up as many items as possible, the Recycler is better because you could be more efficient with what you can choose. But if you're going for a long run and you just want as many items as you can fit into your inventory as possible, the mom's credit card is better. My only thinking on this is that if you have the mom's credit card, you can get as many green items and white items as you want, turn them into scrap, and then choose a soup or a printer later. Whereas with the Recycler, you only get one chance to switch an item to something you'd rather have, and sometimes it doesn't always work in your favor. So Recycler definitely S tier, I don't know, probably below the mom's credit card, maybe, depending on your playstyle. The Remote Caffeinator, a hidden item of the Survivors of the Void DLC. This equipment was like unobtainable for a while due to a bug, but you can now finally pick it up. It's basically just a vending machine that shoots from the sky after 5 seconds and deals 2000% damage to whatever it lands on, and it heals up to 3 targets for 25% of their maximum health. So half of a foreign fruit, but for the whole group, I would probably never pick up this item as the delay time is kind of crazy, meaning you're not going to be able to do the 2000% damage to whatever you want to hit unless it's like a beetle queen, and if you're struggling with a beetle queen, you got other issues. And also the heal isn't going to come until it finally lands and you get to use it, so you don't get to use the heal immediately either. A low C for sure. Now we have the Royal Capacitor, which is call down a lightning strike on a targeted monster, dealing 3000% damage and stunning nearby monsters on a 20-second cooldown. To use this, you actually have to be aiming at a monster since it's a single target ability. Even if you have a Gesture of the Drowned, which forces you to use your equipment, you cannot use the Royal Capacitor until you're facing something. This makes it good and bad in some cases. Now, 3000% damage is literally insane. It is one of the highest damage numbers in the game. So Renault's band, Kajaro's band, Singularity bands, anything really that multiplies damage is going to do amazing with the Royal Capacitor. S tier equipment and probably one of the best equipment in the game. Sawmering, throw 3 large saw blades that slice through enemies for 3 times 400% damage, also deals an additional 3 times 100% damage per second while bleeding enemies, and can strike enemies on the way back. 45-second cooldown. Sawmering is an easy A. It does exactly what you need it to do, which is kill enemies quickly and apply bleed. If you get in the enemy's face with the Sawmering, you're going to be able to hit it multiple times, so that 3 times 400% damage twice, so it's a nice bit of damage. Next up, we have the Supermassive Leech, which heals for 20% of the damage you deal, and it lasts 8 seconds with a 60-second cooldown. This is a B tier equipment, and it's one of the worst healing equipments in the game, mainly because it focuses more on your damage and having such a high cooldown on it. The Backup, which calls 4 drones around you for 25 seconds and has a 100-second cooldown. Even if you have Colonel Drone Man, this item sucks balls. 100-second cooldown for something that is terrible. Again, Gubu. We hardly knew you, and before they fixed it, they could actually kill you. C tier item, definitely not one of my favorites. And even if you have Colonel Drone Man and Empathy Cores and anything else that would buff it, it's still terrible, I swear. The Crowdfunder, a secretly kind of OP item, but only if you have the Brittle Crown. 3, I think, to be exact. Otherwise, all it does is take your money and you're not going to be able to replace it quick enough, especially early on in the game. It does a lot of damage, and it's pretty powerful with a good proc coefficient, but you wouldn't catch me dead picking this up unless I actually had Brittle Crowns on me. C tier, mainly because I don't want to completely trash the item. It's pretty strong, but I can't see myself picking it up. Trophy Hunter's Tricorn, a new Survivors of the Void equipment. Execute an enemy capable of spawning a unique reward, and it will drop that item. Equipment is consumed on use. Basically, what this item does, it insta-kills any boss enemy, teleporter or not, and makes them drop a boss item. It will then consume the Trophy Hunter's Tricorn and turn it into a hat, which will then only say Ahoy when you use it. Ahoy. I'll give this item an S tier, mainly because what you do with it, even if you don't want to replace whatever equipment you have, is you just pick it up, use it on the boss at the teleporter, and boom. You've killed the boss at the teleporter, and now you have a free boss item that you could trade in for later. Even if it's a beetle gland, you could just swap it out for something else if you find a printer. Sometimes you'll get hit by a horde of many, and that kind of sucks, but I would never replace any other S tier item with the Trophy Hunter's Tricorn. I would always pick those back up and just let the Trophy Hunter go. So very low S tier, but a very good item. Provides a certain amount of utility. And the final equipment on the equipment tier list is the Volcanic Egg. You turn into a fireball, which deals 500% damage, and then at the end, you deal another 800% damage. 30-second cooldown. This is a mobility item more than anything else, as it allows you to fly, and the damage it does is pretty low, but it's not a bad item. I'll give it a B tier. It can be very useful for getting to Mithrix and getting to places if you have low mobility. Anyway, that's it. That's my equipment tier list. Let me know if you disagree with anything or you want to fight me to the death so that your equipment can be ranked 1 level higher. There will be more tier lists in the future. This is just the equipment one. I won't be going over any of the lunar equipments here. That'll be in the lunar item tier list. Wow. Swag Money 69 signing out.